And KMA now brings you Evelyn Birkby with her new program, Up a Country Lane. Good morning, Evelyn.
Hello, Jimmy, and hello, folks.
A radio homemaker is a friend and a neighbor, someone who cares about you and who shares your life and who shares her life with those who are listening. It was a time when it first began, back in the 20s and 30s, when women, many of them were on the farm. Many of them led pretty lonely lives or with little children, but they could turn on the radio and here was someone to share their lives with them.
We were over at Sydney with Bob's folks, and we really had a house full. For the first time in 4 years, Bob's whole family was home.
Radio Homemakers began on the radio when no one had ever done this before. And it was brand new, and they had a whole day to fill.
In the 1950s, Iowans were riding a wave of post-war optimism. Eisenhower was president and putting family values first. It was what some called a golden age for Iowa's small towns, and a time when Shenandoah's radio homemakers glittered in the spotlight. Evelyn Birkby's first radio show came shortly after she started writing a newspaper column for the Evening Sentinel, and it came along with some butterflies.
This was a big experience, and I told my good friend Emmy Bingston, I'm afraid I might throw up when I get in there. Emmy said,
and I said, well, just go ahead and throw up. Just push the button and throw up and get it over with and go on. Nobody's going to know it. So she didn't throw up.
60 years later, Evelyn is still sharing her life and her recipes on the air.
Our son, Craig, and his family came the first week in July. So that made the first week very, very special. I had planned soup, beans, and ham when they arrived the first evening. That's always a good meal, a menu that you can keep. If they don't show up exactly when you expect, it'll hold. So that's all my recipes someone has given to me. As you can tell, I don't have an original recipe in my life. I threw myself on the mercy of my neighbors and my family and anybody that had a good recipe. Oh, will you give it to me? Give it to me the way you make it, not the way it comes out of the book, because you probably, like my mother, you pinched and you smidgened and worked with it till you got it where you liked it. So give it to me the way you like it. Amanda piped up and she said, I'll help you, Grandma. So Amanda and I went out in the kitchen and we mixed up the cornbread and she put it in the oven, and so it was Amanda's cornbread.
I don't really know where Evelyn's recipes all came from. One that I used not too long ago was one that she had given over the radio, and it was called Chicken Lickin' Good, and it was a crock pot recipe. And I was telling my lady that does my hair sometimes, I was telling her about this recipe, and she said, oh, well, that's mine. She said, I gave that to Evelyn. And so I'm sure her recipes just come from all sorts of sources.
Was that we had lots of interesting recipes and lots of interesting meals. In the days of the radio homemaker, these ladies and families from the farm would send in recipes. She would always test them and to be sure that they were worthy.
We keep kidding her. We said if the recipe was good, we never saw it again. But if it wasn't good, we'd see it several times until it was good. And when it became good, we never saw it again, because why keep on trying a thing?
My sister-in-law has been taking a course in cake decorating, and she makes this beautiful cake. She had decorated the Mother's Day cake yesterday with carnations. She said it took her all Saturday afternoon to make them, and I can believe it because they were perfectly made. How she kept all the kids out of the pastry tube and out of the frosting is more than I know, but she must have had utmost patience in fixing the cake.
Recipes may have been an expected element of a radio homemaker's broadcast, but these radio programs offered so much more to women living in rural Iowa in the 1950s.
We moved to Valentine, Nebraska, and you are a little isolated from your neighbors. And so I was listening to the radio, and all of a sudden here was Evelyn Birkby on the radio giving one of her recipes, and it was just like old home week, hearing a voice from home out there in the middle of the sandhills.
The whole idea was that the homemaker never talked down to anyone. They always visited with them on their level. So if they wanted to talk about their children, it related directly to that homemaker's or the person on the farm. It would relate to her family. If they had trouble with the wash and maybe the bleach didn't work or maybe the starch didn't work, the homemaker could relate to that, and then the housewife would say, yeah, I had that same problem. And they would write letters back and forth about that. So it was a real attraction to have that homemaker on the radio.
Radio homemakers reflected country living in the 1950s and helped to make life better for their listeners.
The fact that we were just very ordinary, everyday people was a plus because we were friends.